Let the muddied stream come clear, and let those who revere all purity in the will of God stand fast with determination to exercise the prerogative of their free will, yea, but on behalf of the mighty cause of cosmic service. The curious, those individuals who flit from flower to flower, as it were, to sip the nectar from 1,000 flowers, these shall circle the entire neighborhood without ever knowing that they passed a scarce 10 feet from our door, and yet their hand did not come nigh the knocker. I tell you, beloved ones, as in days of yore, few there be that find the doorway on which is inscribed the sacred words, the will of God. I am come to do God's will, inscribed upon the soul with the pure angelic hand of those ministering builders of form, has not been recognized but only by a limited number of people in every age, and yet the cry pours forth from myriad hearts to set the world free, and individuals are constantly invoking freedom for mankind who do not themselves know the value of the very breath which they draw. If they did, they would call for an infusion of the sacred fire into the precious organs of respiration, that they might thereby fill their being with the aspiring breath which seeks to find reunion with God and all that He stands for. Mankind today require in this hour to be shaken from their places of outer security, for there is no security in human consciousness or in human creation, but only in the limitless expansion of the will of God into the chaliced force field of man's consciousness does security begin to be externalized, and does the holy breath begin to realize itself. O mankind of earth, in this hour of peril, when the world trembles on the brink of insanity, I declare, let the crystal clear mind of God flow forth its purifying currents, that the world may be transformed by the transfusing essence of the sacred fire from the holy band of light's own radiant children. Now, beloved ones, as I gaze upon the screen of life to peer through the Maic delusion, I am convinced that the world is not as the world would have itself to be, but exists in a miasma of hypnotic suggestion, whereby the free will of man has paid allegiance to the free will of other men who are not worthy to loosen the latchets of the shoelaces of their holy Christ self or God presence, and yet these individuals continue to exercise a form of tyranny over others and cause the entire human race to suffer as a result of the degradation that is constantly poured into the stream of consciousness by those whose greed is paramount and who will not listen to the voice of conscience. Now I say, in this day and age, the Lord himself continues to work the mighty works of man's perfection, and one is taken and another is left. I tell you, it is a matter of mankind's free will and choice, and yet some individuals dare, I say they dare, to consider that the holy laws of God are not truth. The laws of God are self-evident, and they stand as in England of old, when the first codification of English law began, to express to mankind a measure of purity from one life stream to another. For if men lived by the golden rule, they would not require the rigidity of the law. But because mankind do continue to desecrate one another, the law is required in order to establish an equity in the force field of human relations. And yet the voices that are watching upon the wall have cried out, "Behold, the night has come, and the pestilence walketh abroad in the land, and discord and inharmony rules in the hearts of men, where the sweet peace of the descending dove of the Holy Spirit ought to rule, and the chalice of man's attitudes ought to be extended heavenward in a wondrous conclave of light, whereby the round table, envisioned of old in England, would extend its borders and circumference to embrace the consciousness of all Christ-loving individuals upon this planet, that the communicants of that table might in cosmic purity hold to the immortal vision of the great white brotherhood and the cosmic masters who themselves have submitted to the will of God for ages and ages, many of them having scarcely even peeped out upon the consciousness of mankind to even know what is transpiring here. And yet those of us committed to guide mankind's destiny continue to overwatch the world and to seek to find some measure of cosmic security which we can establish regardless of the violations of mankind's own evil manifestation, which they have permitted to usurp the divine authority in their world. And now I say, let mankind take heed, for at a recent meeting of the great karmic board, it was decided to go back many lifetimes and to draw forth cosmic energy from the records of individuals and bring this to the doorstep of certain especially recalcitrant individuals, that they might be brought to judgment in this day and age for the awful vanity of their being and their expression of discord which they have poured out to the entire world. Beloved ones, do you realize that the tools of the black magicians are still active in the world and are perpetrating most infamous acts of human discord in their own net and web of delusion, which they weave in order to desecrate the Christ image? And yet today, as I also gaze upon the pure in heart, I see a mighty fortress of light, whereby, as hands clasp hands the world around, through a great divine harmonium, all this expression of man's inequity can be encompassed around by a mighty network of light, securing in the bastions thereof mankind's freedom. For the masses are like sheep, I say to you all. They are like sheep scattered upon the hillsides of the world. They do not know where to go, and they cry out in the night, and they invoke with an imploration the manifestation of the deity. And yet, when the answer comes and the knock is heard in the doorway of man's conscience and consciousness, there is no one awake to perceive the voice of light, and the sound is not heard, and the light is not perceived, and the darkness continues unabated over the face of the waters of mankind's disturbed human consciousness? Would you then, blessed ones, stake your own fortunes upon this discordant manifestation? I think not. You will recognize in my release this night, a great cosmic purity which is predestined to awake certain individuals who, upon hearing my words, will recognize that all of the life which they have lived in this embodiment previously has been as nothing, for they have not recognized one whit the total dedication to which they ought to dedicate themselves, and the mighty purity of consciousness which they ought to secure for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, if I were as some mankind are, I think that I should hang my head until it lowered itself between my very legs in shame for all the opportunities that life has given them, and yet they have not recognized it, nor stirred themselves from the awful sordidness of human creation and the discord which they have continued to spew out upon mankind. And I am sorry to say that ever so often there are individuals who have this light, who in a thoughtless and careless moment become a partaker of such elements. I recognize, however, that as in my own life, in ages past, you do fall upon your knees in humble imploration to God, that you also be delivered of that thrust of evil into the force field of your being, and that quality which is not light become transmuted into the sacred essence, so that the world may be more blessed by the precious intent of your heart. And so I come now to recapitulate for you tonight the wonderful chalice which all of you have, a repository of light which is filled with many wonderful thoughts, a precious alabaster jar, holding within itself the purity of the sacred fire. It is as this precious heart, a heart of light, and yet it glows with such a radiance that mankind would not be able with their physical eyes to gaze upon the dazzling power of spirituality when it is invoked by those who are determined to go all the way unto their own full reunion with the Godhead. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you suppose that Archangel Michael, with all of the love and blessing which he has poured upon mankind, feels when the tremendous Christ radiance, the unifying essence of God, is released and individuals spurn that? I tell you, it is a mighty action of karmic responsibility which will come to the doorstep of those individuals who in their own disunity and disarray have not recognized the necessity of calling forth into their own mind and consciousness the power of the Christ mind. Do you see, precious ones? This is the law of God functioning for all time, that an individual is accountable for the thoughts that enter his mind. For you are given, precious ones, a power of equity in the light of God that never fails, whereby, if you will, you can speak to any discordant or unrighteous thought, desiring admittance into your world, and say, you have no power, and so will it be. But if you, precious ones, will admit it into your heart, do you think that heaven itself can cast it out without your precious permission? You see, blessed ones, the law works on a voluntary basis, and it is so essential that those of you who will enter in to the fullness of your free will shall realize that true free will is that wholly dedicated to God and not consecrated to the Moloch of the human ego with all of its monstrous human action, which does bring about such havoc in the world of men without for 1 minute conferring one single blessing upon any part of life. Do you see, precious ones, then, how that mankind in this day and age, seeking to find their cosmic identity, must enter into a greater awareness of God determination than they have ever had before? They must shake their very bones. They must quiver their minds with light. They must expel, I say, all the action of mankind's own human consciousness and see there the wonderful mind of God in all its creative radiance, which has framed the worlds and so wondrously created a consciousness without peer in the universe. There is no consciousness to compare with the consciousness of God. And so then I say, ladies and gentlemen, will you accept my charge as to the knights of the Round Table of old? And will you enter into a sacred covenant with the holy will of God and carry upon your own heart's altar a thrust for a cosmic purpose? Will you determine that the past is prologue and that this is the cosmic hour of destiny, when here in Los Angeles, the city of the angels, men and women of cosmic destiny shall make their cosmic mark for God, which shall be marked upon Akashic substance forever and forever as a turning point in world affairs, when all of the previous history of the world is rolled back as a scroll, and the mighty perfection that gave all this joyous, wondrous elemental activity birth is able then to be the full manifestation of that which God and the great silent watchers held in the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please be seated, for I have noted your deference to the cosmic law, and I am thrilled with the essence of devotion which you have poured forth from your hearts as a cosmic flame. Now, think not for one moment that that which I have begun here shall end here, for it shall not even end upon this planet, but it shall be a wondrous manifestation, as it were, of a cosmic ark of safety, a radiant gathering together of illumined men and women in the world of form to follow the wondrous code of conduct of the great white brotherhood, which has never yet been recorded by anyone in the human level and written down to its fullest extent, but is written in the hearts of men and in the hearts of women of cosmic destiny, and so shall it be. For it is our determination to make our mark in your world this night, not only in this room, but all over the planetary body, and therefore I am calling to the mighty blue flame angels to descend now through the atmosphere and part the veil of Maya in the name of God, that there be established here a pillar of Hercules in the name of God, that it shall come to pass that there shall issue forth from this pillar a fountain of cosmic Christ determination, which men may look to and see, as in days of old when the children of Israel, wandering in the wilderness, perceived the pillar of fire as a witness through the night, and were able to reestablish their faith. I am anchoring in this place then, this mighty pillar, a monument of gigantic proportions to the holy will of God. But I think you will be delighted when you are told, as you now shall be, by my own great guru, the significance of all that which is done here now. The light which beloved El Morya has established here this night shall be focused in every receptive consciousness, and those who have faith in his words shall receive my enfolding blessing to consecrate in your own hearts a miniature focus of Hercules, to remind you in those moments when you are prone to forget that the ascended masters do not ever forget. I thank you and return you to El Morya. Most blessed ones, coming back now in full consciousness of each one of you individually in this room, I say to all of you individually, the quickening power of the great God flame within you is linked to the holy will of God. And as you consecrate this wondrous gift which you have received day by day, it shall expand in your world, and there is no limit set to its expansion save the full dimension of the gigantic force field which we have established here. And this means that every one of you who will, if you give attention to this each day, can expand your individualized focuses until they are equal to that which we are here establishing. Ladies and gentlemen, knowing the great love of your heart, and knowing also that you remain yet in the human octave, I shall withdraw from you now, and shall not continue to speak to you only for a moment more. But that is to remind you that that which I have told you has been issued forth rapidly. And I have also spoken to your souls in another manner while this dictation was going forth. And I know that those of you who will attune with your presence will be able to decipher those mighty glyphs of light which are released into the substance of your worlds. I thank you in God's holy name, and I seal you in his mighty cosmic blue flame of God's will. O blessed ones, let this conference expand, and let all that goes forth spread the light of freedom in this our land. Let joy increase in every heart, and let none ever from God be apart, but always one in the firmness of the rock. For this faith shall draw forth the stone, the sword, the radiance, the cross, the light, and the strength to move destiny, your own. I thank you. Blessed ones, in quietness men gathered unto themselves the wondrous Spirit of God, and fashioned upon the altar of their heart a wondrous cosmic being to expand and expand and expand until he filled all things. The relative size of many things has caused confusion to enter into the hearts of men, because they have reasoned only with their outer thoughts, and they have not always lifted up their hearts unto God, unto the plane of ascended Master love and light. If they would understand all life far beyond this earth, this system of worlds, or even the known universe, is reposing so gently upon the altar of God's heart, and yet he cometh down to abide, to commune, and to enfold all of his children everywhere. The delusions of the senses have taken their toll over the face of the earth, and to this present hour many in the name of religion do despite to the Spirit of grace, and yet we who serve the holy cause in all purity of heart continue our service and work unabated. We shall not end our service to mankind simply because one individual or another does not accept holy truth. We shall but intensify the action of our love, wrapped and enfolded in holy wisdom as a mantle, until more and more of mankind find it possible for themselves to accept the ascended Master laws and to walk according to these great laws. Blessed ones, pause to think for a moment the state of consciousness of those individuals who to this hour abide in an orthodox state of outer world confusion. These do not see clearly the mysteries of the universe, and although there are times when they choose to be most brazen about it and to declare to mankind that their knowledge of the Christ and of the law is most excellent, we who abide in the secret place of the Most High and who know holy truth are able to see the small speck of truth which they hold. Precious ones, the very emptiness of their hearts and the burdens thereof would speak to you not to add to it the weight of your condemnation. I know, blessed ones, how prone mankind are to be tempted, particularly when individuals seem to be most officious in their manners, and their ego in expressing their knowledge of the law seems to override the chelas of the greater light. Blessed ones, in quietness possess your souls, and be not affrighted by the fact
that many wander in the byways of delusion. Remember that their own mighty God presence is the shepherd of their souls, and in due course of time will bring them safely to the great sheepfold. It is ever so true that some of them may wander the balance of this embodiment, yea, and another, or even 3 embodiments or more, without ever discovering the great holy truths that will make them free. But this is not your concern, blessed ones, but rather to express the law of harmony within the force field of your own being and find your own freedom while calling for the manifest perfection of all life. You must do your best according to the degree of your understanding, and not in any way be turned aside from fashioning a beautiful life for the sake of any individual. I tell you, blessed ones, if they knew more, they would do more concerning the great law. But because they abide yet in the temple of ignorance, they do these things, and they need your love, for it is your love that will free them and make it possible for them to come ultimately to the great altar of their own victory. Now, I would like to say to all of you how that in the past much wrong has been done over the face of the entire earth in the name of religion by those who have within their hearts a great portion of light according to their own assessment. But unfortunately, there is one small area of understanding which is not cleared up, and this concerns individuals and their expressions of wrong or lack or misunderstanding. You, blessed ones, must understand then that your own mighty I am God presence is the fullness of all that you could ever desire, and that you have in your presence, locked there in its great love, this wondrous gift of life. Rejoice then in the immortality that is within you. You need not fear, blessed ones, that God in his great plan has not taken into account all things, for he has given into the hand of the hierarchy a multitude of blessings, and with those blessings great responsibilities. I wonder how many of you are aware of the many times that El Morya and Saint Germain have pledged some important facet of their own energy on behalf of the Chelas of light. Well, blessed ones, it is more frequent than most are aware of. And yet, mankind, and particularly the students of the light, are unaware of this. The students of the light ought to be aware of this, you see, blessed ones, and all mankind ought to also have some knowledge of these great laws. But they do not now, and yet when the hour of their illumination comes, it will be as though a great rising, dazzling sun had suddenly burst forth in their being, and all of the preceding sunless days, when their identity was lost in the miasma of the night, will be as nothing, for they will behold the light, and it will move to the zenith of their own being, even as it has with you, and they will find their way to the place where the Lord lays, right within their own blessed hearts. But you see, precious ones, there are many temptations on the path, and none hardly more subtle than family, friend, and loved one, who in some way or other seems to have lost their way and not recognized the great laws which you hold so dear. It is necessary then, in this day and age, when Saint Germain requires a very great service to light and assistance, that as many as possible of the Chivas will cut the cords that bind them to matter and form and to rigid outer custom, and pay supreme allegiance to their God presence and the mighty design of their being. You see, precious ones, when you step through the portals and come to the other side of life from the one you are presently on, the important things to you then will be whether or not you stand in the will of your presence. It will not be a question of human will that will be acting then. It will be a question of the great divinity that conceived you. Precious ones, as the light from my heart streams forth tonight into your midst, it is a freeing action of intelligence and cosmic pressure designed to bring you the golden flame of illumination that will make you masters of your own world. Oh, the world today is very wise, precious ones. They have a vast storehouse of knowledge, and yet they are unable sometimes to solve the simplest problems which confront them. Whereas you, by a simple call in many cases, have utterly evaporated the most dire circumstances. This is almost amusing, and yet it is a wonderful action of the cosmic law which pours through the students who understand how to use it. But you see, it would be utterly valueless to those who had no faith in it and therefore would not use it. Precious ones, you need not feel ever a sense of separation, as though you are a people who are in some way completely not a part of life, because at the present time your numbers are not in the majority. Precious ones, do you know that cosmically speaking, the angelic host and cosmic host so far outnumber the mankind of earth who abide in the nets of delusion, that it is they then who are in the minority, whereas you are a part of that great cosmic majority who bow the knee unto God and confess both in heart and with tongue that your own divinity is the master of your world. And by this confession you amplify the power of light within you to direct your thoughts so that they are channeled properly. And thus, as you think, so you become. And because you think wisely and think well, you become wise men, and you are completely charged with God virtue at all times. It is true that mankind do possess a dual mind, and that they frequently find that the one mind seems to be eclipsed by the other. This you must understand, but not necessarily agree with. You must understand, blessed ones, that your divine mind, the mind of Christ, and the mind of your presence, and of your higher mental body, must always be given dominion over all things. When the outer seems to assert itself, it has no power if you will not give it power and recognize it as supreme. This is difficult, blessed ones, for mankind actually, in fact, many times recognize the outer mind as supreme, and I say this even occurs with students who have studied the work for many years and understand the laws of freedom and the laws which Saint Germain has made known unto you. This I do not say, nor do any of the ascended host with any measure of condemnation, but only to confirm to you that alertness is the requirement of the hour, and it is not an alertness that abides only for a session or two, for a day or two out of the year, but is the requirement of every moment forever until you ascend. Do you understand then, precious ones, how very important it is that you never let down your guard or submit to the voice of human reason when the power and pressure of light and of your presence is so close at hand? Precious ones, it is true that many do not recognize the voice of their presence when the presence speaks, and because they are not able, it seems, to fix in consciousness the vibratory action of their presence and remember it, they are sometimes swayed temporarily to accept the outer reasoning of the mind. Let this not cause you distress, for it is in a sense of distress that you find less responsiveness to the heart of the presence. The most important thing, precious ones, is that you gauge your entire temperament by the qualities of the ascended masters, that you think of yourselves in the role of ascended beings. Therefore, the voice of the presence is always heard in the heart of an ascended being, and the power and pressure of the presence moves with limitless ease through the life of an ascended being. You then, as an ascended being, will find the mighty light rays from God's heart just magnificently expanding in your being, so that they pour forth from you and reach out all over the world, and the love from your heart becomes the love from the Master's heart, and you become the Master in action. No blasphemy is in this, blessed ones, but only a supreme entering in to the joy of the Lord and the wonder of freedom's heart. Now, as this class has been assembled in this place for the purposes of the ascended masters, I wish to tell you tonight that I am counting on you individually to draw forth a radiance that has never before been drawn forth in this city. I want you to absorb in consciousness that this can be done, that this is possible. I do not want you for one moment to have a feeling that it cannot be done, for in a great unity of heart and purpose, it will be accomplished. And when this class has gone down into the pages of cosmic history, it will leave in its wake a measure of cosmic beauty that shall permeate the lives of mankind for generations to come, and bless the entire earth with the golden radiance of God's wisdom. Now, precious ones, let no one fear. Let no one think for one moment that we are not aware of the thoughts of every individual in this room. We simply can only respond to the highest measure of your thoughts. And if perchance you desire to know some specific matter relating to your own life, remember, precious ones, that there are times when we do not choose to expound these matters in an open class such as this, but we choose to bring it directly to your heart and to the attention of your own mighty I Am presence, and your presence will make known to you every requirement of your life. These meetings are specifically called together for a purpose, and that purpose is the expansion of the light of all mankind and the great work of the ascended masters. It is also intended to assist all who attend to find a greater measure of freedom in their world, that they may ascend in the fullness of time back to the heart of their own great source. Now, as you take measure of that which I am releasing to you tonight, remember that in simplicity's grace, I bring to you a keynote, and my keynote this night has to do with you individually unfolding your own talents in the drawing forth of light. Now, mankind could very easily, for example, imagine that we would use one individual alone to draw forth light and charge that individual with the total responsibility of doing it. Well, you see, precious ones, this is not our purpose, for we would like tonight to see all of you as messengers of God's light. We would like to see each one of you draw forth the greatest quantity of God's light that you possibly could ever do, and a greater amount than you thought you ever could do before this class begun. Do you see what this will mean to Saint Germain, precious ones, if you do this? Do you recognize then that this class is an opportunity for the individual? Certainly not a mere opportunity for the Blessed One to whom I am speaking to come and expand his light, but an opportunity for you to expand your light through your own God presence. This then will make it so much greater. For it is true that we could and have on many occasions used one individual to absolutely inspire a large multitude to the point where their happiness knew no bounds. But the keynote of this class is intended to be illumination for all, and therefore the great ones in Darjeeling and in the Cave of Light and in the Royal Tetons have urged me to tell you all that we expect you every hour from tonight until we meet again, until you are called to gather, to make a greater attempt than you have ever made before to expand your own flame of illumination, so that this may be a golden age conference, because you have helped to make it so. I can promise you one thing, that if you do your part, the great law shall not forget. The great law shall remember. The great law shall pour out life and love and beauty. The great law shall act, and you all individually will flash forth as a sun of illumined splendor, not upon earth's pages alone, but upon the cosmic pages of eternity. And I say to you now, in the name of holy wisdom, this is not only possible, but most probable. I thank you and bid you good evening.
Golden days in the sunshine of a happy youth, golden days full of innocence and full of truth. In our hearts we remember them all else above. Golden days, days of youth and love, how we laughed with a and no steam. Looking back through memory's haze, we will know life has nothing sweeter than its springtime. Golden days when we're young, golden days.
Peace be unto thee. In the fragrant breath of the eternal springtime, I am come, aware of the holy beauty that is found throughout the cosmos, the wondrous design of the infinite Father of love. I am privileged then to dispense in his holy name on behalf of the beloved Goddess Meru and myself the offerings of holy illumination, consecration and dedication to the most profound purposes in universal consciousness, which transcends the consciousness of earth, even as the blazing sun of this system transcends the light of the moon. I come then unto you, bearing with me the gift of illumination as a tangible, breathing offering of my heart and being. We are gentle people, and we hold in our hearts the holiest offering of God's own love, clothed with simplicity's sweetness, and offered to those who are willing to come apart from the world and all of the outer glamour of the world, the glitter and the tinsel and the discomforts thereof, and cloister themselves in holy concepts with the mighty communion flame of holy wisdom. Now the divine Theosophia is an elusive lady of heaven, fleeing from those who pursue her at times because of the impurity of their motives, and conferring upon the humble of heart the most magnificent offerings that has ever been displayed. Yet, as diamonds in the rough, mankind are not always able to perceive the fragrance of a soul when that soul is in contact with them, sometimes deferring recognition until many embodiments later. For example, there were many individuals who encompassed the Christ around about in the outer ring of the multitude upon the hillsides of Judea, who did not fully believe the report of God that manifested through him, although they also heard and were privileged to hear the words of John the Baptist as the voice of one crying in the wilderness. These same individuals have in this day and age frequently been drawn to services such as ye are now engaged in, and have this much later in time, 2,000 years having elapsed, have recognized the yearning of their hearts fulfilled in the hearing of the beamed words of the Christ from his higher radiance. Beloved ones, this is perfectly understandable, and I say to you that heaven, in the person of the ascended hosts, is not impatient, not nearly so impatient as the inner being of man, with all of his soul hungers, who desires to find freedom in reunion with his divine presence. You see, blessed ones, consecrated as we are to the enlightenment of mankind, and being a part of the bodhisattva idealists who have offered ourselves for a long period of time on behalf of the world, we are not, as I said before, impatient in awaiting the manifestation of mankind's perfection, but we are long-suffering in charity and holy kindness to mankind. Yet the great urge comes from within the souls of men themselves, and is a restlessness which drives and compels them to do all manner of things which keep them from holding contact with the mighty Holy Spirit, the outbreathing flame of their own reality. Receiving then the impetus of the Holy Spirit and denying that blessed Spirit by reason of their attachment to the delusions of the senses, mankind become captivated by those masquerading entities, and even at times demons, as it were, who are in rebellion against the perfection of God. Moved then aside from the pathway of perfection and purity, they pass through the quagmires of extreme tortures of being, of mind, and even of body, and need special help in this day to free them from those delusions. Blessed ones, the purity of the Christ ideal is a white stone, which when given to a man bears within it his new name, the new name which is also the old name given at the beginning, which is as the lost word, gone forth from his consciousness, even as a pool of water evaporates from the heat of the sun, dispersed throughout the air, and no more a part of the clay vessel of his own identity. Gone then the splendor of man's soul and being, he cannot help but seek to repair the breach and to draw himself into attunement with the celestial radiance of immortality. Seeking in an outer way to do this, he does not often realize that he is shorn of his immortality temporarily, and he seeks some form of palliation and pleasure, and finds scarce little in the transitory and enervating experiences which come to him, in the bitterness then of gall, and in a form of practiced self-deceit, mankind continues to plod across the deserts of life, barrenness then being his portion, and despair in the wilderness that is not apart from God, and yet seems so empty of reality. When we consider the meaning then of the fresh winds of the Holy Spirit sweeping across these deserts and clearing a way so that man can find reunion with his identity, we realize that it will spell an end to these shrieking demons of deceit that have poisoned the pure consciousness of man in all of its pristine purity. And we realize that man will once again come to himself, awake in God, awake in holy illumination's flame, and charged with the vibratory action thereof, which will inspire him to a full knowing of his identity, not as an individualized person set apart without any other part linked to himself, but one who possesses always the androgynous nature of God, the manifestation of his divine consort or twin flame. This twin flame, not always in immediate reach of his life stream, seems to draw him also to ascend. I say this specifically for those whose twin flames are in the ascended realms, and for those yet wandering the earth. There is also a pull drawing them, as it were, to pursue outer things and in the dissatisfaction thereof they cannot find their way back home. Yet in the heart of God there is the inspired essence of God's own being, the individualized I am presence being the key stone, the arch in the chinks of man's identity, the missing link, as it were, which draws him and connects him with that pure ideal which came forth from the mind of God in the beginning before the world was. And so all of the vacancy occasioned by the absence of the twin ray contact can be supplied through the mighty I am presence of any individual, and man no longer is then alone, but is all one, a part of his own best half as well as a part of his own divinity. For the best portion of man resides above him, high in the upper atmosphere, as it were, in most cases not close at hand, and yet can be drawn by love and devotion to descend with the pristine radiance of God that will make of that one a blessed person charged with his holy identity. You see, blessed ones, when individuals act from the human level, they are not always aware of the implications of the karmic responsibilities which life charges them with, and they go forth in a form of human vanity, seeking to bring to their own ego the lacks which it needs. They seek then to fulfill these lacks in the outer world consciousness and by attracting attention to their personal self. This is a form of human ignorance which has its own reward. And that reward is not on the positive side of the ledger, but is a debit to their life stream and brings them into discordant contacts which always result from the wrong action of the use of life's flames of balance, whether ignorantly or whether rightfully applied. You see, beloved ones, the flames of life are intended to balance the identity of man between his divine self. And when man uses these flames in ignorance, drawing forth energy therefrom, and misuses them and misqualifies them, there is always a karmic penalty attached. And yet, the mighty power of life continues on. Now there are many individuals in the world engaged in a form of spiritual service who desire to attract attention to their own outer selves and personalities, simply to fulfill this particular hunger of their own being. But you shall know them by their fruits if you will but look and gaze with the purity of your own heart. You cannot avoid being able to separate the chaff from the wheat in mortal conduct. And therefore you will use Holy Illumination's flame in Christ's discrimination that does not believe all the spirits, but tries the spirits to see if they be of God. That which is of God is always earmarked by a manifestation of cosmic purity, descending from the heart of God. And it is unmistakable once it is known. The vibratory quality, the exhilaration, the uplift, the elevation, the ennoblement of the mind by the vibratory action released therefrom is always a key to mankind, which shows them that it is a release of God, released through some form of his being, whether angelic consciousness, ascended master consciousness, or the mighty I am presence, or holy Christ self of an individual. You see, that which is higher and greater always contains the lesser, and the lesser being contained therein must of necessity bow the knee to acknowledge the greatness of the God identity that is above, for every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that the mighty I am presence is God, the God of very gods, individualized for all, so that none should be alone or separated from their own cosmic identity, so that all should feel a part of God. In the beginning, when the mighty majesty of the cosmic dreams was spun for this system of worlds, the divine councils that met together decreed, and these were lords of the flame, that only the consciousness of God in its highest aspects should be man's portion. And so he was created in the immortal image. His straying forth through misuse of the power of free will has naturally caused him grief and distress. But this shall, this can, this will, this must be mended by illumination's flame, by holy wisdom directing the life of mankind away from false goals and back to the truth of his identity. When man finds his holy identity, he will never desire to lose it again, but will cherish it as the most precious gift of heaven's own heart. The lovely lady Meru, coming with me this morning, but choosing to observe a ritual of silence, is not without compassion toward those of you who are troubled by some form of misunderstanding concerning the law. She desires me to say unto you, be patient with yourselves, for you yourself are indeed a key, and by your conduct you turn that key in the door of Holy Illumination's temple. And so when you are ready, the great cosmic light will appear, and you will have illumination on those things which now seem somewhat dim to your consciousness. You will understand many things in a clearer way, but you require patience. You sometimes transfer your own impatience, as it were, to be going forward in the light to others. And sometimes condemnation is directed at them innocently enough. This is not God's will, and this I advocate that you do not, for it also bears with it a cosmic penalty. Not that God desires to chastise, but that the law must be fulfilled, that you come to holy wisdom's fount and know the difference between truth and error. All that is kind, that is benign, that bestows grace upon men, all that makes mankind comfortable, this is of God. It is an offering of the Holy Spirit, and it is something to be bound upon the heart and upon the head at all times, to be retained there as a useful instrument in the molding and fashioning of the great future that lies before you all. So long as it is cast aside because of its simplicity, or because you have heard it before, it means that you delay the manifestation of your own immortality. This I know you are not wont to do, and therefore I say to you all, bind kindness, love, mercy, comfort, and grace upon your being, and use this with those you meet, all, those illumined, those unillumined, and so bring about the renaissance of the good and beautiful upon the planet. Thus ye prepare the way for the coming of the Christ, for the coming of angelic beings into visibility, for the coming of the ascended masters to walk and talk with you in full view and vision. And therefore I say to you all, when he shall appear, you shall be like him. Hasten that day. It is illumination's message of the hour from Lake Titicaca and from our heart of golden illumination's flame. May it blaze in all hearts. Good afternoon to you all. call me Rabboni, and so I am. But ye have another tutor, closer to you than any other, whom you call your holy Christ's self. This wondrous aspect of your threefold divinity, this blessed mediator, was the role which I outpictured in my Galilean embodiment. But today, as you draw nigh unto the presence of your own divinity, that immortal portion of life which God has given to thee as thy divine inheritance, know that it must be through the gateway of thine own selfhood and not another. As I spake unto the multitudes by the sea and upon the hillsides of Judea, I proclaim to them the invincible freedom of their own God's self. This power locked within the heart of man's being is the authority over all outer conditions, and has the power within its own fiats of light to say unto those in the grave, arise and come forth. And they that are bound will come forth and manifest a renewal of the ancient covenant of life that beats the heart of all mankind by the authority of the dictum of heaven. And now, as I am come to encompass you round about with that love which of old framed the worlds, I am reminded that this generation, like unto previous generations, is not always alert to all of the divine opportunities which life has given. And I proclaim as of old to all, awake and behold the salvation of the Lord thy God. See, stand still, and witness for thyself that when all outer progress is stilled and man relies upon that spinning thread of light that is the descent of his own divinity through the soft folds of night that will illumine him and bring him to the noontide of his existence, man must know that in the stillness of being he is in reality God, a manifestation of God, yea, I say, and more than a manifestation of God, but the God of very gods, if he will enter into the consciousness of all-knowing, which declares to the world, I am that I am. It is in the concept of insignificance that mankind bestow upon themselves such a paltry title, a man less than the angelic hosts, crowned with more glory, I say, yea, when the title is claimed and recognition is paid, not in a false humility or a sense of unknowing, but a sense of becoming that which in reality you are. I cannot in this day and age with all of the love of heaven dare to say unto you, you are less than that, and proclaim the immortality and intelligence which brought ye forth upon the screen of life to breathe forth in this day and throughout all ages the blessed consciousness of God. His goodness I proclaim anew, and I proclaim it to set the captives free who have long been bound under the spell of human illusion, which through the thraldom of the senses has caused mankind to weave garments not of pure white substance, but interwoven, as it were, with the false identity of egoism, the mania of constant depression which fashions through the fabric of fear a cloak to seal man in those elements of delusion and confusion which have caused him so much distress through the ages. And yet I am come this night nigh unto the very door, proclaiming the self-same love, which can do no harm to aught of man or beast or creature, whether great or small, but only to hold that wondrous and beauteous perfection within my consciousness and within your own, which will make you free to breathe anew the air of heaven, and see then in all thy seeing that around thee there is in manifestation in the invisible world the kingdoms not only of the air and the sea and all that in the sea is, but also in the earth and the heart, where the precious minerals are stored, and in the heart of being, thy earthly vessel and tabernacle, and also, above all, in the mighty crown, the fire of life, that infuses thy form with energy, and the heat of being that swells and expands until the temple becomes the gold of the spiritual tabernacle, abiding then to hold the elder patterns of God's art in the wondrous design that will set you, O man, apart from all that is the mold of human decay, and release the substance pure into the bosom of thy divinity, the ageless security which comforts you at all hours. Travail, let it go. I say, let it go. Why will you hold a consciousness of travail? Why? Do you think because I knelt in Holy Communion in Gethsemane that I sustained that hour before the awful dawn of that day? Do you think that I sustain it now specifically in memory? I but refer to it as an hour, an epoch, a part of one of my embodiments. And although it was the final one previous to my ascension, I take delight in the manifestation of God's victory, the victory which brings rejoicing to the angelic hosts. For there is naught of human pain or sorrow or anguish that delights the Father's mind, nor can he gaze upon the events which mankind seems so prone to dwell upon, for his eyes are too pure to behold iniquity. and he commits to the divine mediatorship of the Holy Christ's self the contact with the evolutions of earth that shall raise them from the depths and degradation of human despair and exalt in them the purity of the beings of the air, those wondrous angelic messengers of light and love who sustain me in those moments when all of the forces of evil conspired, as it were, to tear me asunder from the mighty reality that became my own victory over death and over all destruction, and permitted me to ascend in that wondrous consciousness of God that is with me forever and is your portion even as it is mine. I cannot comprehend the need for man to abide in the delusions of the senses and in the outer world of distress, nor can I permit my consciousness to be pulled down to that level of consciousness. I come this night then to raise and to exalt ye all into the wonders of our Father's love. His kingdom given unto me is not denied unto thee, nor will he deny thee, if thy heart in all cosmic purity will seek his own virtue and claim it as thy own. For this will atone for all errors mankind have made, and will make them unafraid to face the victory of life, and know God wills it so. I say to ye all, the terrors and the pestilences of life must give way to the flaming sword of the Holy Spirit, which quivers now in Edenic splendor as it did long ago, when the jeweled sword was drawn forth to guard the way of the tree of life and to separate imperfection from perfection, to sever light from darkness, and to determine the bonds of man's habitation, that he should not walk beyond the point which keeps the way to his immortality until he is ready to shun the delusions of the senses, to cast them forth that they be no more a part of himself, to claim them no more nor to desire them. To dwell in the house of darkness is to depart from the house of light, and the house of light is the place where God is in all of his radiant splendor, your Father and mine, whose starry perfection pours out to the world through his great love, the love that flows forth in torrents from your heart in precious moments when the joy of heaven is nigh thee and departs from thee as a scroll rolled up, when thou art nigh unto the world and all that the world conspires to do to the immortal perfection, to crucify me afresh, as it were, in the immortal concept that man cannot accept that he is in truth and in very truth a being of light, that he is, regardless of mankind's own hypocrisy, regardless of mankind's own sensuality, regardless of mankind's own impurity, regardless of mankind's own viciousness, he is a being of light. He came forth to do God's will and to redeem the earth, not I alone as one, but all mankind for the same supreme purpose, that is the unfolding of divinity which flows forth by the power of light and light alone, so that there will occur a covering of the earth with the knowledge of God that shall replace that knowledge of mortality and density, that unreasoning spirit which does not do aught but compromise man's immortality by a senseless merry-go-round of human fear and foolishness, departing then from compassion and true love, and seeking its own way, until at last, in utter weariness of soul, man turns to behold all that he is, and robed in that purity, seeks to rise above the world and all the dust of man's concepts. I say to you now that the hierarchy does not desire to do aught this night but to bring you such a charge of love and light as shall never from you depart. And if there be some among you wearied in physical form, and desiring that I should not continue my discourse by reason of your own weariness, let me say unto thee that the light of God never fails, and the light which I am is the light which you are, and if you will claim it now, I can remove from your flesh forms any feeling of human fatigue and infuse you with the immortal love which I am, and you shall know no weariness of body, mind, or soul, but only the immaculate sense that desires to penetrate the mysteries of heaven in truth, in purity, in love, in compassion, in demonstration, and in an outworking and outpicturing of all that I am and all that ye are. And this cannot be until ye lay, as it were, at the altar of God, the altar of being, whose being but thy own, all that has been given thee, and then, having left thy burdens also upon the altar of life, depart from the sense and senselessness of raising these burdens to thy shoulders to carry. When I have spoken and spoken well, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest, for my burden is light. I come then in light, and I leave on wings of light, and those who will retain the moldering concepts of human decay, as Saint Germain has told you in his wondrous exposition on alchemy, will but reap the fruitlessness of aborted efforts. But those of you who will recognize, even at this late hour, the opportunities that are before you, not departed, but here and in yourself. To you, I say, shall more be given, but to those who will not accept the opportunities which life gives, there shall be taken away even that which they have. For this is the fulfillment of the law, which must, by divine right, exorcise all that is impure, and bring all who are beings of love to the mighty caravan of light, sustaining in them God purity until they ascend and become a part of our band to render a service to the world and assist in the freeing of every soul. Lo, I am come. Lo, I am with you always. Lo, truth has spoken. Let him who hath an ear to hear and a heart to understand know that I am here. Know that I shall always be with those who love me, and I shall assist you in the transmuting of your burdens and the drawing of your consciousness up toward God in the fulfillment of the final ritual of being, your own ascension, your own victory. I thank you in God's name for your love. I thank you in God's name for your attention. And may the Holy Spirit, in all encompassing bliss, blaze the fire of his being upon you. And may you know in truth that in God's own name ye can together affirm, be still, O human self, thou elements of human creation, and know that that portion of God that is thy own individualized being, thy own mighty I am presence, is God, thyself in action. I breathe upon you the parting fragrance of my heart and the roses offered to me by every soul that has ever loved me from the beginning of mankind's own worship. And yet this I desire not, for I would have obedience to the precepts of God rather than adoration. This is my charge, but it is my love. Thank you, and good evening. O thou wondrous divine opportunity, the inflow of the almighty power of light's perfection, come thou and assert thyself and thy dominion into the force field of each one of these children of light, and let them feel the wondrous outpouring of thy radiance, the consummate intelligence and power of Almighty God, whose every thought unfolds the perfection of man, even as the flower unfolds from the bud, until all are raised to that fair estate where the full manifestation of their own divinity is apparent to all, and they bloom on those Elysian fields where the purity and the radiance of heaven is the full perfection of their being in manifestation. Precious ones of the light, I am come this night in the holy name of freedom, and to remind you of the immortality that is locked within the pressure of light within your heart. The presence of light within your heart may seem to be a mere simple statement, and yet it is the fullness of all that the universal consciousness holds. For the anchor point of the flame of life within your being connects you with all worlds whatsoever, and enables you, if you will, to rise into a state of overcoming consciousness, whereby you can overcome the world and all that the world itself is held in bondage and become an absolute manifest child of light, that all who behold will know and feel the pressure and the presence of that light that is within you. Most gracious ones, I am come this night to speak to you concerning force fields, for I would have you to know that every individual has a force field of light or shadow, as the case may be, according to the measure of their qualification, which is anchored all around them in the human aura. But buildings and places also have force fields, which reflect the character of the individuals abiding there, and create a radiating point in the world for conditions of light or shadow, as the case may be. Now I am certain that all of the students of this great light will long to feel the pressure of those force fields of light, and to know that those force fields of light throughout the planetary body are interconnected by mighty rivers of light, streamers of divine radiance, which weave together the body of God throughout the entire planetary body. So much so that the retreat, for example, at the Grand Tetons is connected by mighty light rays with the retreat of the god and goddess Meru at Lake Titicaca in South America, and all retreats of the great White Brotherhood are woven together into one magnificent outpouring. Know then, blessed ones, that wherever there are gathered together, as it were, even 2 or 3, in the name of the Christ, in the name of the mighty I Am Presence, there in the midst cometh forth the light, the connecting link that draws that focus and force field into the network of the entire great White Brotherhood, and establishes there a pillar of mighty light, which brings to all in that general area a specific manifest radiation of the divine intent and purposes. I am come this night then to establish here in Minneapolis a specific quality of the God flame of freedom, to anchor here in this place a specific quality and radiation which shall cause the hearts of all who are receptive and responsive to the vibratory action of the light to feel and to know that a flame of freedom is anchored here. And yet, as I speak to you this night, I am prone to bestow upon all of you who will accept it a gift of a miniature flame of freedom anchored within the force field of your own being, according to your own measure of devotion to the holy cause, which you have externalized in your service to the light in past times. Blessed ones, know then that labor and virtue are their own reward, and have their own reward. For tonight I bring to you this specific gift, bestowing it then to you in the force field of your own hearts. Right where the mighty threefold flame of life is anchored, there I am depositing a specific momentum of the mighty flame of freedom, the power of victory for the entire planet, that wherever you go, you may be a bearer of the flame of freedom to all you come in contact with, generating then and creating mobile force fields, so that you will spread abroad the mighty power of light and its perfection, as though you were a moving star, an advent of great light, which told to all peoples everywhere of the great incoming of the mighty stream of freedom from the heart of God, which shall come forth in the golden age, and shall anchor in all of the many force fields of light throughout the planetary body, the mighty connecting link of their own divinity, which shall cause all people to become one, not only in heart and feeling, but also in every endeavor that is dear to their heart, the cherished ideals of freedom then to become the cup of man's longing, filled with the contact with their own mighty I Am Presence and the power of the ascended masters, reaching forth through the veil of the invisible into the visible realm, to let all see reflected in the identity of man, not the density patterns of human creation, but the mighty patterns of infinite freedom, which shall remove every trace of human discord, and shall cause the individuals connected to me to be examples of the great light and the outpouring of the flame of freedom, which shall sweep the earth as a prairie fire until the earth is free, purified by the sacred fire and the washing of regeneration of the mighty Spirit of God, the Spirit of the Infinite One, who has created all men, and yet all do not acknowledge his presence, nor bow unto him, and acknowledge the preeminence of the mighty I Am presence of their life. Neither do all at the present time confess to the glory of their own divine identity, and acknowledge the name of the living Christ presence of their being as the mediator between themselves and their mighty I Am presence. Blessed ones, you do not know the great good that is bestowed upon the world as you issue forth these decrees, these magnificent patterns which you are creating, then becoming established foci of light, and causing many to come to drink of the fount of light. You see, blessed ones, there is a threefold service to be rendered upon the earth, and that service is to serve not only the needs of mankind, but also the needs of the angels, for they also have needs, and their needs are to serve mankind, and then, blessed ones, to serve the needs of the elemental kingdom, that they may be cut free from the imposed discord which mankind have thrust upon them through wrong thought and feeling, causing them to be locked, as it were, and encased in a mold of silt and human creation, the substance of mankind's density, which has no part with their own I Am presence, but is a misqualified action of mankind, functioning then in the dimensions of human creation and the realm of the human ego, without the illumination of the sacred fire and the great release which freedom can bring to all who will accept it. I am called by mankind the God of freedom for the earth, and it is therefore a mighty joy for me to bring to you tonight, by the power of light, the infinite outpouring of that flame of freedom, that you may come to know that the veil connecting you with your own God presence can be made very, very thin, so that you can actually see and perceive through the veil the wonderful gleamings of the sacred fire. Precious ones, I remind you of the Grail mysteries. I remind you that your physical form then can become a repository for the holy substance of Almighty God, that can be anchored there in the flame within your heart, to cause the gleams of that bright coal from the altars of heaven to actually pass through the molecular structure of your body and beam forth not only from your eyes as a gleam that is twinkling from the eyes of God, but as the manifest power of the sacred fire gleaming forth from every cell, renewing then the vitality of your physical body, infusing your mind with holy substance and compassion, and filling your emotions with an infinite love for God that refuses to submit to the densities of mankind and demands of life that it have its own cosmic identity asserted as the moving power, the cause, the first cause of all action in that individual's own world. Precious ones, so long as mankind are content to be guided by the whims of human reason, the fallacies of human thought, and the awful deceits practiced by human emotions upon mankind, they will find themselves going astray from the pathway that leads to infinite happiness. But when they recognize the power of Almighty God to give them their freedom at this specific moment, and then to maintain by the power of light and its superior intent the fullness of their own divine perfection at all times, they will find that they are entering in to an era of such happiness as will cause them to desire nothing as much as the perfection of their own divine presence. And because they have intensified the desire of their own presence to draw forth from heaven the virtues of heaven, they will become manifest
tokens and symbols of God's love for the earth and its entire environs. Mankind then will be raised, as it were, on mighty wings of light. They will be raised from the phoenix-like ashes and will be raised into an infinite sphere where their services to the earth can become a unified action of the cosmic Christ, and there will not be those elements of human discord that hitherto have served to divide the body of God very well, so that they have prevented a manifest integration of the bodies of light upon this planet and the full outpicturing of heaven's glory, that mankind might see not as through a glass darkly, but face to face into the immortal knowing of their own divine perfection. Now, blessed ones, when I came, I spake unto you concerning force fields. Now let me bring to your attention that the grid of the force field is divided, as it were, arbitrarily into a series of small squares which extends from the center of the force field out into space. And this space can vary according to the intensity of the force field. And I tell you, blessed ones, that some of the squares located very close to the very heart center of the force field are intense with a tremendous glowing radiance of white light. Whereas, as you proceed farther in space from the center of the force field, there is a lessening of the intensity of that radiation. Therefore, the more sensitive will of course be able to pick up this tremendous radiation even from a distance, whereas some will require a more intense action of the force field if they are to realize what is taking place in the mighty release of light. Therefore, you must understand that many of the scientific laws, blessed ones, which govern the manifestation of mankind's energy, does govern the forces of light and the release thereof. You must understand the difficulties which are sometimes encountered in communicating as we do with your octave as we are doing this evening, under conditions of opposition from the outer mind and consciousness of mankind, who desire to prevent the manifestation of our words and the release of our substance with all of its purity into your world. For I tell you, in the darkness and shadow of ignorance, mankind have become bound to a regimen, and that regimen has never in all eternity given them their freedom, and I tell you it never will. For you cannot bring forth light out of darkness. You cannot bring forth purity out of shadowed and impure substance. You must recognize that the greater does indeed contain the lesser, but the greater must flow into and infuse the lesser with a full radiance of its own perfection until there is drawn forth by a summoning of the holy will of heaven, by the individual's own will harnessed thereto, a complete release of the necessary requirements of the great law, which shall give every individual their freedom when the fullness of time is come for the manifestation thereof in their own world. Now I tell you, blessed ones, when force fields of light are established and multiplied throughout the planet, it will be an integrating of the great power of light and an intensification of the cosmic grid from all of the force field, so that there will be no spot upon earth that will not be saturated with an intense action of light as it is released. Do you see what this then will mean to mankind, who are presently engrossed, as it were, in the building of monuments to their own personal ego and the acquirement of money, that they may cause mankind to tremble because of their monetary power? I tell you, blessed ones, for money's sake and for the sake of filthy lucre, the mankind of earth will do almost anything, even to bring about the defeat of great nations and destruction. They will betray their countries. They will betray their homes and families. They will betray their own divine presence for the sake of money. I tell you, blessed ones, this is an action of the money beast, whose center, lying over Wall Street in New York City, has caused a manipulation of the stock markets many times to the destruction of many individuals. But, blessed ones, do you realize what the action of man's love of money has done to the cities of your own country? How it has brought about not only places where individuals act in a manner most unbecoming to their own divinity, but also deceive mankind and attempt to deceive the very deity within their person. And yet, of course, It is a known fact to you all who have an understanding of the great law that this is impossible. For the eye of God sees all and knows all that is taking place everywhere, and the divine hierarchy, through its great cosmic link of angelic intelligences, is able to report to the great lords of karma on the instant every single act of mankind, so that there is no individual anywhere who is able to proceed in the darkness of his own being to perform nefarious acts and then escape the action of the great law. But, blessed ones, these grids and force fields of light have their counterpart in force fields of iniquity, which are scattered throughout the land and released to mankind in intense action of shadowed substance. In order to counteract this, then, it is necessary that more and more force fields of light be tied together throughout the planet, that a great cosmic integration may cause the seamless garment of the Christ, as this beloved messenger spake to you about, to be actually the swaddling garment of the earth, to bring forth the mighty cosmic Christ intelligence to all mankind that shall enable the entire earth to enter into their freedom and to know and to be the fullness of their own mighty I Am presence. Be still then and know that I am God is a fiat which you may enter into daily, and in the consummate entering into find your freedom from all the entanglements which mankind release. Do you think, blessed one, that the outer actions of mankind have any meaning to your own immortal destiny? I think not. For the most important problems which you ever will encounter are the problems of bringing yourself to the feet of your own blessed divinity and permitting that blessed presence of life to take you by the hand and to lift you up as the prodigal son to the very heart of God and say, I am calling you now to come unto me and to be free from all foreign entanglements and to give the great allegiance of your heart unto me, that I may give myself unto you in my fullness and see that you are the breathing image of myself in action here. Blessed ones, for many reasons I shall take my leave of you now, but not without that kiss of immortal peace which I have bestowed upon you in the flame within your heart, the kiss of freedom, which, I tell you, blessed ones, can only be amplified by service to the holy cause. Your destiny is in your hands, individually and collectively. You serve as individuals to receive the presence of God and to be the presence of God to all life. But you are also collectively a great outpouring of our love to mankind. Be that in action here. And I think that when we come before the Lords of Karma with the presentation of the fullness of the action of this year's accomplishment, it shall be most glorious and holy. And whereas some among mankind may not acknowledge its power and pressure, I think that those of us whose eyes are open not only to the Spirit of God and His holy truth, but to the Spirit of love as it passes abroad among you and walks your streets in your own person and in the person of those angelic intelligences, will rejoice at that hour, because I am come, and the holy cause of freedom, enhanced then by the immortal love that is alive within you, the breathing intelligence of the angelic hosts, will so completely integrate you with the being of God that you shall feel the thoughts of mankind yet unascended and the pressure of their prayers and calls unto the deity, and you shall rush forth during the night hours while your body sleeps to join Michael's legions and the powers of the angelic host to serve mankind and the guardian angels of their presence, to be a comforting presence of life everywhere, and to lead, as it were, blessed ones, that double life which every ascended master in ages past has done, to find then that by service and love to light he has won his victory in the fight. He has indeed entered in to the fullness of God's power, the power of light over sin and human density, the power that forgives and is the consummate mastery of all substance, all energy, and all principle. I say unto you tonight, go forth in freedom's light, and be the perfection which I am, the perfection which your presence is. For in that presence I abide. I abide in the divine presence of myself, my own mighty I am presence, into which I ascended now long ago. And ye who will may yet come in this day and age to find the wondrous freedom which I abide in, and to be an outpost even in this hour of that holy life. I thank you for your attention, for your dignity, for your grace, for your service, for your energy, for all that you have done for and on behalf of that cause. And may your blessings continue without end, an unbroken blessing of cosmic service that shall make the earth free for God and for the I Am presence in the heart of the great central sun. I thank you, and I bid you good evening.